Hello? Is ever Can someone let me know if this is working? Oh, here we go. Oh, I see it now. Okay, everyone, I think we're here. Sorry, I've been talking to myself for about 5 minutes. Um, let's see. Someone let me know if I'm live? I think this is working. I think we're okay. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining me tonight to talk about Bourbon Girl. This is the latest serial, and you guys are a big part of it. And thank you for being here. I know there are a lot of things you could have been doing on a Saturday night, so I especially appreciate you being here with me. Um, Thank you so much to everyone in the Facebook group, the Bonds Daily Serial Lovers Facebook group. I want to start out with thank yous to the group experts, Pat Barker-Rhodes and Janice Tatro, an all-star contributor of Marilyn Richards. And I want to mention some other top contributors, Deanna Rogers-Yergo, Carrie Swan, Ruthie Langston Terry, Janice Clemente, Letitia Ballard, Debbie Guggenauer, and Dominic Riddick. And I can't go any farther without thanking my wonderful social media manager, Scott Clodfelter, who helps me keep my head above water when things get crazy. And they got a little crazy this year. There were a couple of times when I wasn't really sure if I was going to get the monthly novella out on time. And between my personal commitments, and then there were a couple of Amazon glitches that got in the way, and it was a little frantic this year, but we got through it, and I hope you didn't notice too many bumps behind the scenes. But anyway, thanks again to Scott. You are the best. Okay, and I can see chats. Thanks everyone for hanging in there. I talked to myself for a few minutes before I realized this wasn't working. So I just want to say thanks. I can see a few of you have stopped in. There's Ellen and Marge and Christy and Angie and Janice and Pat. Hi, Pat. And so we're all so glad that you're recovering. And let's see. Janice, Ashley, and Dominic, and Scott, and Beth. So yeah, I appreciate your comments. Just to let me know you're here and where you're viewing from, that would be great. I'd love to know. And so everyone, let's get into Bourbon Girl. I have to say I wasn't sure how everyone would feel about me writing a serial this year that revolved around the liquor industry. But I tried to make Bourbon Girl a story about found family and not so much about partying or drinking or, just indulging in bourbon all the time. Not that I think anything's wrong with that. I love bourbon myself, and but I had a feeling I didn't have a lot of bourbon aficionados in the audience. So I wanted to try to make this a story that was accessible to everyone, and to maybe teach you something about the bourbon industry. I know it was something that I was interested in, and coming back to my home state of Kentucky, where I've relocated for temporarily, it got me interested again in this industry that kind of exploded after I moved away. So anyway, I hope that you found it interesting. I think your conversation around Bourbon Girl has been super, and I just so appreciate everyone's comments and the support of the novellas, and just all of the camaraderie in the Facebook group. It's just been terrific to read. So I want to say, if you have a question, please post it in the chat, and I'll keep an eye out for it. And I'll go back to look to make sure that I haven't overlooked one. And I'm going to say, let's see, some more hellos. Let's see, Jill is here, Paula, let's see, Linda, And let's see. People are posting where they're from. West Melbourne, Florida. Cement, Oklahoma. Is that a place? Cement? Am I saying that right? That's funny. Rochester Hills, Michigan. Los Angeles. Let's see. Cold, Ohio. Is that a place or is that a state of temperature? Because it is cold in Kentucky today, I tell you that. Had snow on the roads this morning. Let's see. Ellen and Marge are in Iowa. Let's see. Oh, Marge says you really like Bourbon Girl. Thank you. All right. And post those questions. If you didn't get a chance to post a question beforehand, to submit a question, be sure and post it in the chat. And Lynn is here from Prague, Oklahoma. Angie from Bardstown. I got a note from Angie, and she's in our pre-submitted questions, and so I'm going to start with those. Guys, if you have any comments to these questions or just some more, be sure and post it in the chat. So the first question is from Letitia Ballard, and she says, when you came up with the idea of Bourbon Girl, did you already have an idea how the story would end? Or did the story take you by surprise as you wrote it? So this one was tricky, I have to say. I had in my head, I already had in my head that she was not going to find, or that she would find her father, but he would not be, he would not be accessible to her. And I hadn't decided until I started, that was sort of incubating in the back of my mind for a while, that I wanted her to find some other people to be her family instead of this person that hadn't been part of her life. But it took me a little bit to figure out how I wanted that twist of someone that, these are spoilers, by the way, so if anybody didn't read the end, look away now. But I did want that twist in the end of her father not being available to her, and I just didn't exactly know how I was going to get there. And then I thought that I would make. All along, I thought I would make, after I thought about the twist of Boyd, I went back and forth about whether to make Boyd a villain or not. But I decided in the end that it was better not, that he not be a villain, because I didn't want her closest relative to be someone that was a bad person. That took me a while to come to that conclusion, because honestly, it would have been better, more conflict and sort of more exciting to write if Boyd had been this terrible person that as soon as he found out she was there looking for her father, that he was going to try to, get rid of her or to interfere somehow and put her in danger. So I honestly, if this ever gets optioned for a TV series or a movie, that's where the writers will go. They will make him the villain. And I get that temptation. It was there. But I decided instead to stay on the side of my main character. And I really needed her to come out of this not feeling victimized and not feeling like she was in a worse place for having gone to look for her father, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. And did the story take me by surprise as I wrote it? It did, because I kept going back and forth. Honestly, in the beginning, I thought I might even come back to the fact that Keith Banion was really her father. That he was the first guy that she confronted, and and I wanted Keith to kind of stay in her life, and I thought, at some point, I really could I could change everything that I thought I would do and just go back to Keith being her father. I could do that. But in the end, I decided to stay with the twist with Boyd, and just play it out. But I'm sure all of you can see how these serials can spin out into a lot of different storylines. If I had let Keith be her father, then the romantic relationship that she had with Dylan would have had more of a possibility, of course, of coming to fruition. So that was something in the back of my mind. But in the end, I decided to go with the way that I wrote it, and I don't have any regrets. But writers and I talk about this a lot. We talk about how there are 99, there are 100 different ways to write a story, but 99 of them are about the same. There are lots of choices that are just as good as the other. And, it's a decision that writers have to make all the time is, I would like to go down that road, but I'm not sure it would get me any further than this road that I'm on. So I decided to stay on that road. Anyway, Letitia, thank you for that question. Beth submitted a question. She said, could this story be continued? There are so many open ends. Yes, and all my serials I feel are kind of like that. And I have to say, in the back of my mind, I'm always hoping someone's going to option my serial and take the story further than I took it, or in places that I didn't take it. That maybe we'll see it on a small screen or a big screen, and I'll get to see the story in another iteration. The problem is that all the stories, I lived with them for 6 months, and the characters are, so many characters. There are just so many more things that we could do with the stories, right? All of you could take this story and run with it in a completely different direction. But I have to end the stories at at some point, or I could never write another story, right? So anyway, lots of open ends. I am determined, though, to keep writing a bonus scene for my serials. I started that, and I wrote bonus scenes for some of the serials, and I'm going to continue doing that. And then eventually I'll get to Bourbon Girl, and we'll write a bonus scene that's kind of a catch-up scene. And by the way, I post those in the Bonds Daily Serial Lovers Facebook group. So those, if you're in the group, you will get those bonus scenes. And that's the only place that I post them. Anyway, thank you for that question, Beth. And then Mary Clodfelter asked, could we please have a sequel? Well, I don't know about a sequel, but I definitely will do that bonus scene. And maybe I'll make it a little chunky, more chunky than a scene. Maybe I'll do that, because there really is a lot to catch up on here. And she said she enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Mary. That's so sweet. She said, I want to see Bernadette inherit her father's bourbon business and take her ideas and bourbon talents to the next level. Okay, that is a good idea, and it's something that someone else talked to me about. Like, well, she's going to inherit the bourbon business, right? It's like, well, the problem is it's not her uncle's business. It's her aunt's business, I guess. So it's Boyd's wife's business, right? It's her family business. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that they could bring her in to work in the distillery, and maybe at some point, become a partial owner of the distillery. I'm not sure she could inherit unless something terrible happened to Jessica, to Boyd's wife. And, like I said, if this was a TV series or a movie, or if I had another, 6 months of story to go, maybe we would go there. Jessica could, come to some untimely end. And then it all goes to Bernadette. That would work. That's a great idea. Maybe I will. As a matter of fact, if this ever gets optioned, I'm going to write all these notes and pass them to the writer of the TV series and see if they can take it to that place, because that would have been cool. I mean, the fact is that Bernadette has a degree, and she's getting her degree in hospitality and events, and she would be perfect for this industry. So, it could definitely work out. Anyway, it's a great idea. Thank you, Mary. Also, Mary said so much more to explore with the Jet relationship and all the business ideas she had with the bees. Yeah, so here's the thing about the serials is if you've noticed that a lot of them, of course, the characters don't get their happy ever after with their love interest until the very end of the story. And because of that, we don't really get to see them together that much. So, I get it. I see that would be, nice to be able to see more of them with their loved one once they finally get together. But I will explore that when I do the follow-up bonus. I'm not going to say scene. Maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll do a bonus chapter or a bonus novella. How about that for Bourbon Girl, since there's so many loose ends. And then Mary also asked, can you give us some hints on what will be the next daily serial? Well, so I had decided before Bourbon Girl that this was going to be the last serial with the title Girl, that had the word girl in it. So I've had 10 serials starting with Coma Girl, and Bourbon Girl being the 10th one. I decided 10 girl serials, that's probably enough of the girls, and so in 2026 I'm going to start a whole new franchise of serials with the word woman in the title. So my characters are going to grow up a little bit. So starting in 2026, the heroines will be a little older, and I'm going to have characters that are more of like, instead of coming of age, they'll be coming of middle age. They'll be dealing with a little bit more mature problems. So I'm looking forward to that. Just myself, I just think that's more interesting to me. So starting in 2026, the serial will be Something Woman. And as always, I always announce the title of the serial in the Facebook group for the Bond's Daily Serial Lovers group. So I will announce the title there first, probably somewhere May or June, something like that. And I do have just the inkling of an idea of what it might be. I just haven't put it down on paper yet to see how the story could unfold over 6 months, but I'm close. Okay, and let's see. So thank you, Mary, for following along with Bourbon Girl this year. I know you were there every day. Okay, and Janice submitted a question. When did you decide on the switch of identities with Boyd and his brother? Again, spoilers. So I think I decided that before I started writing the story, I decided that there would be a switch of some kind. And so I think what happened in the beginning, so I had 2 or 3 different ways the story could end. And if it ended with the twist, it was always going to be Boyd and his brother. And if it ended with Keith being the father, there was another way to go. But so I decided on the switch pretty early on, just because I didn't want it to be so straightforward. And I wanted there to be like another reason that Boyd didn't want her to find out, other than the fact that he was her father. It was like that. That probably would have been embarrassing for him, but it's not like it would have been something that he couldn't have overcome. I didn't think that was enough of a threat, so I felt like if her coming looking for her father could sort of undo his entire life, then that would be a different kind of threat on a different kind of level. And then Janice asked, when did you decide who would be her biological father? Little, 2 or 3 different branches of who it could be. at the very beginning. I didn't fully decide on the twist until probably 2 or 3 months in, honestly. So if you all think that I've got this stuff figured out, like ironclad from the beginning, I don't. I am writing this as I go. And I know I say that at the end of my novellas, I'm always apologizing. Like, if you see typos, that's because I am writing this so fast. You're getting it, practically from my keyboard straight to you. And I'm always at the very last minute uploading my novellas. I'm hanging on to those stories until the very last minute because I'm still thinking and moving things around in my mind just before I publish them. I like to surprise myself. I don't mind writing myself into a corner and trying to get out of it. Let's see. So Janice also says that Naomi and Marilyn were both interesting supporting characters. Did you base them on anyone you've known or met, or what was your process in creating those two? So Naomi was the reporter, and I felt like I needed another female potential love interest for Jet in the story. So I needed to introduce someone who was going to be on the tour quite often, and I thought, well, I don't know who that would be. It would have to be someone who's wants to learn about the industry or is doing a story or something, and so that's why I decided she would be a reporter. And then I thought, oh, if that's the case, then she could maybe help or hurt Bernadette as the story goes along. You've probably noticed, if you've read some of my other books, that I like to have reporters in my books, and one character in my Body Mover series, for example, was Rainey Stevens. She was a newspaper reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And it just is always, it's handy to have a reporter around because they can do things either for you or against you, for the story or against the story, or for the character or against the character, because they just have such a reach that they can get word out that's either beneficial or that can, really change the story by putting false information out or misleading, or, they're just a kind of a handy character to have around, I have to say. Just to be honest, it's just always good to have a reporter there, and it makes the story feel a little bit more epic if you have a reporter, because it keeps reminding you that there's a world out there, and that there's there's a news events that are going on outside of the story that we're in. So that was Naomi's character. She was a functional character and useful in terms of showing Jet what he did not want, right? What he did not want in a love interest. Marilyn kind of came along a little bit later in the story, and she came to me a little bit later too. And what I really wanted there was I wanted Bernadette to see the path that she could have taken. That that Marilyn might have been Marilyn. Marilyn might have been her if she had gone down a different path. If maybe her background and her childhood was already very shaky, but she was a strong individual to have overcome it. And Marilyn, obviously didn't have as strong support at home, obviously, as even Bernadette did. So Bernadette, as at the beginning of the story, she's thinking, why me? Why does everyone else have parents and stability, and everyone else knows who their father is, and I don't? And she's just feeling very excluded from society and just misunderstood, I guess, and alone. And I wanted her to see that here's this girl, Marilyn, who's actually worse off than she is, and someone that she could extend a hand to and help along the way, because she had some similar experiences that turned out better for her. So that was where Marilyn came from. And let's see. Oh, this was a question. I had to kind of write some things down. So, people always surprise me with this question. It's not a surprising question, but I'm always surprised because I'm never prepared to answer it. And the question is, what authors do you enjoy reading, and or what are your top 3 favorite books, either recently or of all time? So I had to write down a bunch because there's so many books I love. But of course, I have to mention Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew, I had all the complete series of Nancy Drews, and it's probably what most influenced me becoming a writer. And I have to mention Nancy Drew because that character is so old and so beloved, but has been around so long that it's actually now, just this week, came into public domain. So Nancy Drew, the first 4 Nancy Drew books are in public domain. Oh gosh, that's just how long she's been around and how long she's been inspiring writers. So Nancy Drew, I have to mention that. So I have a lot of beloved books, and I think back to books that I read at pivotal points in my life that probably made me want to be a writer, even though I didn't know it until much later. So a couple of early ones was A Woman of Substance, Barbara Taylor Bradford. I bet a bunch of you have read that book. That was an oldie but a goodie. Also The Thornbirds, that was Colleen McCulloch. That was a wonderful book, and gosh, that was the book that I wish had kept going and going and going. There was also Where Are the Children, Mary Higgins Clark. That book really stands out in my mind as a thriller that really shaped me. It just was so, I don't know, just so gripping. That storyline doesn't seem that, oh gosh, all that special these days, but back when Mary Higgins Clark wrote that book, it was really unusual. And let's see, these are some, there's a nonfiction book that I love called The Magic of Thinking Big. Now, this is an old book. It's written by David Schwartz. And it probably came out in the, I'm guessing, 50s or probably 60s, at least in the 60s. And there are a lot of dated references in the book, but really the text of the book is still very good. That was The Magic of Thinking Big. And I love that book, and I've bought that book to give away many times just because I think it's such a great book. Also, this was an oldie but a goodie. It's a Night Sins by Tammy Hoag. I love that book, and I read it at a pivotal time in my writing career. I was just getting started, and I just thought that book just really gripped me, and I love the way that book was marketed and it was rolled out to the audience, to readers, to bookstores. It had a great cover. Just everything about that book I just loved. And let's see. There's a book that a friend of mine wrote. It's a memoir called Passing Rain, and my friend is Doreen Buckley Graham. And sadly, she lost a daughter to cancer. And she wrote this memoir about that experience, and it is just absolutely beautiful. So if you, and uplifting, it's a wonderful book. So if you're looking for a good book, kind of a bittersweet memoir, A Passing Rain is terrific. And then another friend of mine, Jennifer St. Giles, wrote a Gothic romance called The Mistress of Trevelyan. And I love that book because it kind of harkens back to the Gothic romances like Phyllis Whitney and Victoria Holt that I grew up reading. I just love that book. And then also this was a book from a few years back called The Bride Finder, Susan Carroll. It's a historical romance. Just love that book. It's really wonderful. And Susan's a great person, too. What I'm reading right now, though, is a book called The Wedding People, Alison Espach. And I'm reading it, and it's a good story. I recommend the book for story, but also because of it's written in a present tense. And I don't have a lot of experience writing in present tense, and I'm just kind of learning and reading it to learn more than anything. So it's an interesting premise, and it will be a TV show or a movie. It's just there's no way it can't be. It's a very popular book right now. You've probably heard of it. So I think I hit all of them. That wasn't really the top three, Janice, but I couldn't narrow it down. And oh my gosh, I just have so many books on my shelf that from friends. You know, that's the good thing and the bad thing about being a writer is you know so many other writers, and I want to read their books, and I want to read all the books that I hear about on TV, and you know, and I still have to squeeze in some time to write my own books. And now that I'm writing screenplays too, I'm busy reading other screenplays, and so it's a lot. But I'll still love to read, and yeah, I will never get tired of a good story. So thank you for that question, Janice. And the next question is from Ashley Passanen. And Ashley asked, did you ever consider an ending where Bernadette stayed in Kentucky? And why did you choose for her to go back to Arizona? So I guess, so I did think about leaving her in or letting her stay in Kentucky because, you know, I love Kentucky and I wanted to showcase Kentucky in this story, and I wanted Bernadette to fall in love with Kentucky. But I think in the end I decided that I wanted her to go back because I felt like she needed closure from her life in Arizona. I also really wanted her to go back to do something for herself and to get her education, and not just to feel like she was staying in Kentucky just to be with Jet and to, you know, be his girlfriend and to help him with his business. I mean, she can do all of those things after she gets her degree, so I guess I was just kind of selfishly thinking, oh, if Bernadette were my daughter, I would want her back to Arizona with a clearer head about who she is and where she came from and finish her education. And then she's so young. She has her entire life ahead of her, so she'll find her way back to Kentucky and back to Jet in due time. Let's see a couple more questions. This one from Carol Ravier. She asked, when will the complete daily serial be out? So thank you for that question. So here's what I always do. I always do this this feedback event because I want to know what you think, and I want to have time to get feedback because a lot of you email me about the story, and I am reading your comments in the Facebook group, even though I don't comment as much as you all do. But I am following the comments because I want to know what you're thinking. And I always leave a little open. I don't put out the entire serial until I know what your feedback is, just in case there's some very strong reaction to something in the story, or some confusion about something, or something I didn't explain, or just something I made a mistake about, or something like that. So I really do wait until I get your feedback, until I put the entire volume out as a print book. So I'll take your comments. If I don't see anything that means I have to go back and do a fix or a tweak or a rewrite on something, then I should have the print book of the complete daily serial will be out in within a couple of weeks. That process takes a little bit of time for me to submit the print book. It has to go through some quality assurance steps, so it takes a little while, but hopefully by the end of January, the complete daily serial will be available. Okay, and just a comment from Angie. Angie Babb says, we recently relocated to Bardstown, Kentucky, and I love this series. Now, this is why, Bardstown, why it's meaningful here is Bardstown is actually sort of like ground zero for the bourbon industry. Bardstown is where the bourbon festival takes place. There is a lot of bourbon history around Bardstown, and if you go to Bardstown, there's a lot to do in Bardstown. Lots of distilleries to tour. It's a beautiful place. The reason that I made the story more centered around Louisville is because between Louisville and Lexington, it's more concentrated in those areas, and because Louisville has much more of a sort of a nightlife and more restaurants. It's kind of more of a happening place, I think, than Bardstown. Bardstown is lovely, but it tends to shut down a little bit in the evening. And frankly, I don't know as much about Bardstown as I do Louisville and Lexington, so I decided to set the story more toward the center of the state and the eastern part of the state. And I didn't talk about Bardstown as much, but Bardstown is lovely. And yeah, if you are into bourbon, you'll definitely want to check out the Bourbon Festival that happens in Bardstown every year. By the way, all the events that I had in Bourbon Girl, the festivals, all of the like the pumpkin hunting and the let's see what the like the thriller dance and all of that stuff, all of those things really do happen, and they're really events that do happen and that you can attend if you're in Kentucky. And I have to say, I really shouted out Carter Caves, which is a state park in my hometown, hometown Olive Hill, where I grew up. It's just a lovely, lovely state park, and I feel like it's never really gotten its due. So I mentioned Carter Caves a lot in the story, and it is a real place, and definitely encourage you to visit there if you're in the eastern part of the state. But anyway, so that's why Bardstown is meaningful here. Angie, do you love it? I think Angie's I think she's in our chat. So let me see. Let me look for, Angie, are you here? I think she was here earlier. Okay. All right. Anyway, she says, she goes on to say, I've read all your dailies in order, starting with Coma Girl. Waiting from January until July for the next treat is agony. That's so sweet. And I have an idea for another series if you're open to suggestions. I'm always open to suggestions. Oh my goodness, I have so many stories that I've got to finish up. Let's see. Mature woman sounds great. Let's see. Did we ever hear from Angie? Sorry, the chat's getting away from me. I'm going to have to... Oh, there's Angie. She's like, I do love it. Yeah, Bardstown's beautiful. It's a beautiful little town. Okay, and yes, Angie, I am open to suggestions. Just email me or put it in the Facebook group, and I'll see it. Okay, and then one more comment. This is just a comment from Betty Gracie, and she says, love your writing. That's sweet, thank you. She says, sometimes I think you know my family by the characters you write about, especially my mother. Laugh out loud. So, okay, Betty, you have to tell us more about your mother. Yeah, I have a great family. The hardest part for me is when I write about family dysfunction, because there's not a lot of dysfunction in my family, and I just have that, I had this idyllic childhood, and I have a great relationship with my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother, and the hardest things for me are when I write about difficult mother-daughter relationships, because I never had one, or difficult sister-sister relationships because I'd never had one. So I have to really pull from, just my imagination when I write about these dysfunctional families. So anyway, very funny comment about your mom. Okay, those were the questions that were submitted ahead of time. And I'm going to look on the chat to see if anybody has any questions just give me a minute while I go back through. Gosh, lots of comments. Thanks, guys. Let's see. Oh, Pat said, do I have an idea for next year? I do. It's, like I said, I am still tossing it over in my mind. And let's see. Vivian says, what about a crossover scene with the escort girl and Bernadette after she completes her degree and starts working in Kentucky? Okay, crossover scene with escort girl and Bernadette. Let's see. Are you saying that Bernadette could work with escort girl? Escort Girl, by the way, for those of you who didn't read it, is not about escorting. It's not about an illicit industry. It's about being a talent escort. So yeah, I feel like in the girl universe, one of the things is I ask myself, could my girls cross over and be cameos in each other's stories? Like, could Coma Girl be in a situation with my character from Temp Girl, and so on? And that's how I keep these characters. They're different, but I feel like they could all be a friend group of some kind, similar in age and circumstances about these women that are thrust in these, just these incredible situations, these sort of frantic, troubling situations that they have to kind of get themselves out of. So you could do that. So Escort Girl and Bourbon Girl could do a crossover. Let's see. Loved the series. Did not see the end coming. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Let's see. Christy asks, how much of a running head start do you write? When you release the first of 6, do you already have a couple of months done, or is it truly written month by month? It is truly written month by month. Literally, I write July's episodes, I write in June, and then August episodes, I write in July. So I'm writing truly a month ahead. And like I said, I am really always at the last minute to upload those novellas. So I'm changing my mind and tweaking things even at the last minute as I upload those novellas at the last minute. And that is only a few days before you get the story. So really, it's still fermenting up there when you are reading it. Let's see. Janice said she loved complaining about Naomi in the Facebook group. That's good. Carrie says, made me want to go on a bourbon tour and I don't like bourbon. Okay, so let me just say, Carrie, I was not a big bourbon drinker either, but I wanted to go on this bourbon tour and I wanted to get to know more about bourbon. I have to say, if you want to know more about something, or if you want to get, I guess, better at something, just kind of immerse yourself into it. And one of the best things I ever did for myself was years ago I took a class on wine, because I never really was sure like why I liked certain wines and why I didn't like others, and so I was never a confident wine drinker, and I was never confident about what I ordered to drink. So after I educated myself about wine, I appreciated wine much more, and I liked it more, because then I could figure out, how to order what I liked and how to avoid the things that I didn't like. And so I kind of felt the same way about bourbon. It's like there's probably some good bourbons out there that I haven't found them yet, or ways to enjoy bourbon. And so a lot about going on the bourbon tour is learning how bourbon is made, how much it means to the state's industry, all the craftsmanship that goes into it. But there are also a lot of things made with bourbon other than just, drinking it straight from the bottle. And you can do, of course, cocktails and mixed drinks with bourbon, but also the candies, pies, and just all of the things you can make with bourbon, marinades and desserts and things. They're wonderful too. And you can go on the bourbon tour, and it's just strictly educational, and you don't have to drink any of it. But it's very interesting. And by the way, if you're the person that goes on the bourbon tour and you don't drink bourbon, you're the most popular person on the tour, because you're the designated driver and everybody wants you. So if you think that this industry just sounds interesting from a historical perspective, I recommend that you take in some of the bourbon tour. And again, a good place to start is in Louisville, because there's a lot concentrated there, and there's a lot of nightlife in Louisville. Like you can get a great hotel and a great dinner in the evening. And Louisville has its own airport, so it's easy to get in and out of and accessible. Oh, so let's see. Christy says, same. I kept thinking, why haven't I gone to Kentucky before? Yeah, there's a lot of good things to see and do in Kentucky, but I highly recommend that you look into Kentucky state parks. Beautiful, beautiful, and really economical places to stay. Very accessible and just, family affordable. I love our state parks. Christy also read A Woman of Substance. And Linda says, I had all those Nancy Drew books. I only got rid of my Nancy Drews about maybe 5 years ago, something like that. I gave them to a young cousin. But yeah, I love my Nancy Drews. How many books do you read in a year? Not enough, I have to say. Honestly, I'm happy if I can read a couple a month. So I read a couple a month, and then I might listen to an audiobook, maybe a couple more. So maybe 4 a month, something like that. It just really depends on how my writing schedule is, and how much I have going on, because I feel guilty when I'm reading other people's stories and I'm thinking, oh, I need to get back to mine. But it's always good motivation. When you read a great story, you want to go write a great story. Ellen says she loved Whitney and Holt books. Oh gosh, we grew up on those, didn't we? Oh, those were such good books. Gina liked that she went back to Arizona to finish her degree, and Jill liked the ending. That's sweet. Thank you. Janie says, where is our Stephanie Bond branded bourbon? Oh, funny. Yeah, I don't. So my dad, I can throw this in there because my dad is a bit of a winemaker, which surprised all of us kids, by the way, because let me first start out by saying I grew up in a dry county. I don't know if you know what that is, but in Kentucky, a dry county is a place where you can't buy wine or alcohol of any kind. So I was never really around alcohol, and my parents weren't drinkers. And so after my dad retired, he announced he was going to start making wine, which just shocked all of us kids because we weren't sure that our dad had ever had a nice glass of wine. So why was he suddenly making wine? But he had a friend who was, yes, a moonshiner, and this guy taught my dad how to make wine. And so suddenly my dad is making wine. And so this goes from, a household where we never saw any kind of alcohol at all to going home, and Dad would have little flights set out, for us to taste all of his wine that he had made with every fruit you can think of. And the funny thing is that Dad was never really great about figuring out how to control the alcohol content. And, wine runs anywhere like maybe around 10% to maybe 13.5%, maybe 14% at the most for most wines. And and you'd taste the wine, and you would, it would burn from the front of your mouth to the back of your mouth and all the way down. And we'd say, Dad, what's the alcohol content? He'd say, well, this one, I think it's about 21% on this one. And we would laugh and say, Dad, at this point, it's brandy. It's not even wine anymore. But Dad could never quite get his alcohol level straight on the wines. And so they were all, we called them sipping wines because they were very strong. And then my sister and I finally realized we could make great sangria out of them. So that's where most of them wound up. But yeah, I don't think I'll be making my own bourbon anytime soon. But never say never. No. I thought there is a term called bottled in bond, something like that. It's something to do with a certification of, like the like certifying that it is a particular kind of bourbon. But anyway, that was an interesting phrase when I ran across it. Let's see. Angie says, Bardstown is listed as one of the prettiest small towns in America, the bourbon capital of the world, and recently infamous for the Crystal Rogers cold case murder trial. Who knew? Yeah, Bardstown is definitely a happening little place. It is a beautiful town. I definitely highly recommend you fly into Louisville and drive to Bardstown, or just drive, make Bardstown part of a driving route if you're going in that area. Let's see. Would love a series that involves a character from Body Movers, 6 Months of Cooper, or Wesley would sure be an adventure. Oh, that's an idea. Of course, that would be from the male point of view, so I would have to twist that a little bit. But, yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot planned for Body Movers in the future once I get a bunch of other books done. But believe me, I haven't forgotten about Body Movers. And in particular, I've set up a 13th book. I did that in Graveyard Girl, and I'm going to write that book. But also I'm going to drop this little hint. I'm thinking about doing something with June Moody, who was the woman who owns the cigar bar. And you're hearing that first right here. Let's see. Even though you write as you go, do you have the end in mind? Usually. I've usually got some kind of ending in mind. So this was a really good advice I got early in my career, is if you have several ideas for a book and you don't know which one to write the one that has, where you know the ending. And it's an ending that you like and that you feel good about. And it's true. There's something about knowing the ending that makes you want to get there. Let's see. Okay, I'm looking for any other questions. Gosh, I'm sorry if I overlook someone's question. Please post it again at the bottom so it's a little closer to the bottom of the chat. Gosh, I can't believe I've been talking for almost an hour. So I guess I should probably wrap this up if you don't have any more questions. I do want to talk about what's up for the next quarter, for the first quarter of 26. So let's see. So since Valentine's Day is coming up, I've got this early romance that I wrote called My Sexy Valentine, and I've gotten the rights back to it, and it's just been sitting there waiting for me to go back and look at it and figure out if it needs to be updated. So what I'd like to do is try to get that out before this Valentine's Day. If not, I'll have to wait until next year. So I'd really like to get that out this quarter. And I'd like to write a new Two Guys Detective Agency book. The reason that I mentioned Two Guys in Bourbon Girl is because I wanted to get back to that series, and it helped me sort of get back to those characters even though it was just a cameo in Bourbon Girl. It made me think about those characters again and make me want to get back to them, and I do want to write that book next. So my next new book will be the Two Guys Detective Agency book. But I've also got to get more of my backlist in audio, and I've got to get more of my backlist in print. Believe it or not, all my books that I've gotten back are still aren't available in print, and that's on me because I just haven't had the time to do it. I'd also like to get more of my books in large print, and I haven't been good about doing that, but I want to get the entire Body Mover series out in large print and some of my other books out in large print. Those seem to be much more popular in libraries, and I'd like to get more of my books into libraries so that they're available to people who might be on a fixed income, or just you read so many books you can't afford all the ones that you want. So I'd like to get some more of my books into libraries. And I'd like to my Stories Behind the Stories serial, which, see, I was going to hold up a picture of, and I think my Kindle has died. Let's see. My Stories Behind the Stories is on my front page. Let's see. Oh, here we go. It's this banner, can you see the Stories Behind the Stories banner on my front page of my website? If you haven't read that serial, it's kind of like my sort of my career story, I guess, as far as the closest to a memoir that I have is the Stories Behind the Stories serial. It's free, and it just tells the story about how I got started writing, and it's kind of the story behind each of my books and how they came about and how my career progressed. And I'm up to 13 chapters, I think, in that serial. And I need to get back to it. I'm going to write another chapter in that Stories Behind the Story serial this quarter. So be looking for that. And if you haven't read that serial, go to my website, click on the banner, and then you can see that you can just kind of spin through the chapters that are all there from the beginning and just sort of catch up on the story. Especially if you're interested in writing, or if you just want to see kind of the behind the scenes stuff that happens with writing, there's a lot of information there. So let's see. Christy says, get off Facebook and start reviewing your Valentine's book. Yeah, I need to. I need to say goodnight. But I wanted to thank you again for joining me this evening and just for being part of the Bourbon Girl Serial for the last 6 months, because I can't do this without you. I could not roll out a daily serial if you all weren't following along every day and asking your friends to join the story and follow along. So thank you again for making this fun for me, and I hope it's fun for you, and I hope you'll come back and let's do this again in a few months. And again, I will announce to the Facebook group. You'll know first. You'll know before anyone else what the title of the new serial is. But I will see you July 1st, okay? And thank you again. And Happy New Year. I wish you a happy and healthy 2026. And I'll say bye for now.